3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the place where you're not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram. We're as lethargic of a performance that you could remember from a team in a 7-game stretch. So entering this offseason, and I've been a big advocate of this, there's been a lot of doom and gloom with the Philadelphia Eagles. And the way that we viewed the Eagles at the end of the season was, we know they have the talent. We know there's talented players. But the head coach doesn't have control of his locker room. And Nick Sirianni was put out to that podium, was put out at that press conference, and was literally asked by the media, well, you're getting rid of your offensive coordinator. You're getting rid of your defensive coordinator. You're not calling the plays on either side of the ball. So what do you actually do? Like Nick Sirianni at the end of the season, he was emasculated. And it was by his own team. Because they're basically telling you at the end of the season that he was a puppet. And Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie like to control the owner and the general manager. And they're not going to move on from Nick Sirianni. And I could see both sides of it. Like, I was a proponent of getting rid of Nick Sirianni. I think that's a team that could win a Super Bowl. However, the Eagles were like, well, in 3 years, he's made the playoffs 3 times, and he also got to a Super Bowl, so he's deserving of another opportunity. But that's how bad, and that's just how rancid of a taste that you had in your mouth at the end of the Eagles season, that it was fair to advocate for Nick Sirianni getting fired. So I even said this about a week and a half ago. I had a tough time seeing myself buy back in on the Eagles before the start of the season, and I did not see a road for the Eagles to really get back to that team that was 10-1, or the team that was in the Super Bowl outplaying the Chiefs for 3 quarters, which was a full season ago. Like, I had a tough time envisioning me buying back in on the Eagles. And I still have my concerns. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, yeah, it's good that they got Huff, but they're probably going to lose Sweat, and maybe they keep Hassan Reddick, and there's still problems in the secondary. We'll see what they do. But on the offensive side of the ball, the Eagles bolster their offense. Sure, you lose Jason Kelce. That's an enormous loss, but you still have a very good offensive line, if not a top 5 offensive line in the league still, even without Jason Kelce, who's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And then from a firepower standpoint on offense, you have Jalen Hurts, where there's pressure on him, but you got to think Jalen Hurts is not going to be as bad as what Jalen Hurts displayed towards the end of the season. You have a great 1-2 punch at wide receiver in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You have a solid tight end in Dallas Goedert, and now you add an explosive running back in Saquon Barkley in a league where we diminish the running back position. However, the Eagles made a move that not only took away and kind of stabbed their division rival in the back, but it also distanced themselves, in my view, from the rest of the NFC East. Because the Cowboys, they said they're all in. What have the Cowboys done? Is this microphone on? Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Like, did the Cowboys know that the offseason has started? Because it's tough for me to hear Jerry Jones say that we're all in, which you knew was a dog and pony show. And then when the first 2 days of the legal tampering window do open before tomorrow's free agency officially commencing, the Cowboys made like one move. And no one even knows the player that they even signed. So it's an irrelevant move. So I do think with adding Saquon, the Eagles are now back to being the team to beat in the NFC East. And I'll even take it a step further. I'm now starting to feel a little bit more optimistic about the Eagles heading into this season, because they have an abundance of talent. But with all that being said, it does not take the pressure off of Nick Sirianni. Because if the Eagles wanted to, they could have got Bill Belichick in this building. They could have got Pete Carroll in this building. They could have agreed to a deal with Mike Vrabel. They could have landed maybe a Jim Harbaugh. All 4 of those guys were available. Now, Harbaugh's with the Chargers, but the other 3 guys are still available. Vrabel doesn't have a job, Belichick doesn't have a job, and Pete Carroll doesn't have a head coaching job. So the Eagles are telling you that Sirianni can still work. They're also telling you that Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie can control that team, which they failed to do so in the final 2 months of the season. And when I look at this Eagles roster, the reason why there's so much pressure on Sirianni is because his NFC is open. They still have one of the more talented rosters in the NFL, and this is a team that it's Super Bowl or bust. Anything short of hoisting that Lombardi trophy this year for the Philadelphia Eagles, the season's a failure. And this team has enough talent to get to a Super Bowl and hoist the Lombardi Trophy. But can you find a way to get out of your own way in the locker room? And can Nick Sirianni still be a player's coach, but a player's coach that actually has control of his team and not just a doormat? And that's the question that still remains unanswered. Because you can't look at this Eagles roster and you can't say to me that this team isn't a top 5 talented team in the NFL. But you can have, even with 3 years of going to the playoffs, an enormous amount of questions and an enormous amount of doubts with this head football coach. So I don't think, and you could define pressure in many ways. Pressure to lose your job, pressure to win. Pressure gets defined in many different ways. It's a very ambiguous term. But when we look at all the coaches, all 32 coaches in the NFL, I don't think there's a coach that's under more pressure than Nick Sirianni. And bolstering that offense yesterday by adding Saquon Barkley puts even more pressure on him because you can't use the excuse that this team doesn't have enough talent. Now, when we get to quarterbacks, there is not a quarterback under more pressure this year than Deshaun Watson. Because the last time we've seen Deshaun Watson be on the borderline cusp of becoming an elite quarterback, being one of those quarterbacks that you look at, you go, I can't name more than 7 or 8 better quarterbacks in the NFL, was in 2020. And that was the last season that we saw Deshaun Watson really fully on a field, and his team was garbage, right? He didn't have DeAndre Hopkins anymore. He was starting to check out of Houston. We knew more was going to happen off the field, or we didn't know more was going to happen off the field. But what we were looking at already was Deshaun Watson was already starting to lose trust with the franchise, and then more nasty things and more than football obviously started to develop. But in that 2020 season, even though his team was trash, Deshaun Watson's numbers were fantastic. Then, ever since then, in that moment, he was out the entire 2021 season. He only got to play 6 games, or he's very rusty in 2022. And last year, outside of 1 game before the injury, there wasn't a moment really where you were like, wow, the Browns trading all those picks for Deshaun Watson and giving him a fully guaranteed contract was worth it. And in this offseason, you already had a talented team, right? The Browns have a good offensive line. You're getting Nick Chubb back after another serious injury, but you're getting him back. You have a phenomenal defense that is led by Myles Garrett. And in the wide receiving room, you have Njoku at tight end. And then you have Amari Cooper, who's criminally underrated and is a number 1 wide receiver in this league. You just added Jerry Jeudy, and now that's going to bump Elijah Moore, who's a solid wide receiver, down to a number 3 wide receiver. So the Browns are a team that you can't say, oh, they're not doing right by their quarterback. And Kevin Stefanski coached his ass off this past season without Deshaun Watson. They made Joe Flacco look like elite Joe Flacco once again. And oh yeah, by the way, the Browns today said basically goodbye to Joe Flacco because they're bringing in Jameis Winston, go eat a dub, to be the backup quarterback. So now I look at Deshaun Watson and there's no room for excuses, right? We are now several years away from the last time you were a good, borderline great quarterback in this league. Now you have to stay healthy. Now the rust has to be knocked off, and you have to start to show that you are deserving, because you're going to get the money either way, but show to everyone else that you're deserving of the picks that franchise invested in you and the contract that they invested in you as well. And I don't sit here with a ton of confidence and believe in Deshaun Watson anymore individually like the way that I did 3, 4, 5 years ago. Like, I'll never forget. I know now everyone gets hijacked by Patrick Mahomes and how the Chicago Bears didn't take Patrick Mahomes. No one knew Patrick Mahomes was going to be that quarterback back when the Chiefs traded up to go get him. But I remember sitting in Philadelphia and sitting at the NFL draft that year, which was in the city of brotherly love, and I was irate that the Bears took Mitch Trubisky because I was like, what did you see from Mitch Trubisky that you would think he's a better quarterback and going to be a better pro quarterback than Deshaun Watson? So I once believed in Deshaun Watson. Now I don't. But this is going to come down to Deshaun Watson, the individual, because the team around him thrived last year without him, and this team got even better this offseason, and you're getting Chubb back. The quarterback now has to step up and deliver. So I don't think there's a coach under more pressure entering next season than Nick Sirianni. And I don't think there's a quarterback under more pressure next season than Deshaun Watson. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Who is a coach and a quarterback that is under an enormous amount of pressure entering this 2024 NFL season? Samter, you got a name or two with the QB or the coach?
I mean, I've got like 8 names on each side of the argument that are under more pressure than the 2 guys that you named.
You can't give me 8.
I can give you like 6 or 7.
Wait, 8 quarterbacks and 8 coaches, or 4 quarterbacks and 4 coaches?
I got like 9 quarterbacks and I got like 5 or 6 coaches.
All right, so do this. Give me your 2 best coaches. The 2 best coaches, which may be the 2 worst coaches, under the most pressure entering this season, more than Nick Sirianni.
Far and away, Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott is under the most pressure by far. Because not only is his job on the line, but there's so much more on the line as well. He keeps coming up short. Sirianni went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago and started out 10-1 last year. It crumbled, and they lost one and done in the playoffs, but at least there was that blip of positivity. Sean McDermott he can't even sniff what Sirianni has done. He can't even sniff it, and he has the quarterback, and he has the roster, and there's been no excuses at this point. Now they got rid of the offensive coordinator. There's no excuses. Sean McDermott's not only coaching for his job, but there's so much more on the line for him.
So 2 things. I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I still don't even know. And I was someone last year that week 1 I was calling for Sean McDermott to get fired. So it's not like I haven't had that energy. But I don't think the Bills have that energy. Because the Pagula family, who are newer owners, but they know that this franchise for like 20 years didn't make the playoffs. McDermott gets there. All they do is make the postseason. I think they're afraid to move on from something that has been good, but something that hasn't been great. Like, to Bill standards, this has been a great run. But to most NFL fans, they're like, okay, you got to a certain spot. You've been in the upper echelon of teams, but you haven't advanced it more forward than where you were a few years ago. If anything, you've kind of stayed the same or even have regressed. And also the relationship with Brandon Beane. As long as Brandon Beane is the general manager with their relationship going back to Carolina, I don't think Brandon Beane's going to have a head coach that isn't Sean McDermott. But it is a fair name. I will not debate that McDermott should be under a ton of pressure. I just don't know if he will be, especially with a lot of the changes and the roster just being kind of reconfigured with the Buffalo Bills. Give me one more coach.
In the same division, Mike McCarthy. Because Mike McCarthy's been there a lot longer and failed a lot more often than Sirianni has. Again, Sirianni lost in the Super Bowl, could have won it.
On par.
And then had that one bad half of season. Sirianni's only had really one bad half season.
It was a bad start the first 5 or 6 games. Remember, he did that flower analogy in year 1. Then they finished strong. Then in year 2, they were awesome. In year 3, good 10-1 start, and then one of the worst choke jobs in NFL history.
Totally get it.
Okay.
Get it. So,
no, those are 2 fair names. I think they're all in the same kind of realm.
And I've got others also that we can discuss another time. We don't have to.
I love you, but I don't need to be here until 40 after the hour before we take our first break. I don't need ACT saying to me, hey, Chief, you're a little bit late to that update if we break at 40.
And I'll give you 3 quarterbacks quickly in the same vein. Dak and Allen, because we're looking at the Bills and the Cowboys, and Tua. They have way more pressure than Deshaun Watson.
So Dak Prescott, I'm going to say no, because I already know what Dak Prescott is. Josh Allen is the 3rd best quarterback in football, and they've taken away.
Short.
Yeah, but he plays well in those games. And then who was the last one?
Tua.
See, I would not extend Tua. Tua's in the final year of his deal.
That's the thing.
I would not extend him, but here's the thing.
Deshaun Watson's getting paid no matter what. Tua is playing for his career.
Yeah, but I don't think Tua could ever be a great quarterback. I just think he's good. Watson already got the deal. Watson, they already traded all that draft capital for. Like, I think Watson should be a better quarterback than Tua, but we haven't seen good/great Deshaun Watson in at least 3 seasons. Now, like, every excuse is out the door. Like, all right, you came back, it was 6 games. Now you came back, you got hurt, and now it's year number 3 in Cleveland, but it's really feels like year number 1 because you barely played. I will not waver on the quarterback. The coach, I think it's more open than the quarterback, but to me, that's not even close. I don't think there's any quarterback in the NFL that even is in the same realm of pressure that Deshaun Watson has on him because of the anomaly of the deal that he just got this, two or three NFL off seasons ago. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We'll take a break. When we come on back, the Ravens now have a new king, King Henry. How will the partnership of Lamar Jackson and King Henry work? And are the Ravens primed to go to a Super Bowl finally? We'll get to that next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. So Derrick Henry is off to the Baltimore Ravens on a 2-year deal. I absolutely love that move. My only gripe with Derrick Henry is leaving Tennessee is about 2 or 3 years too late. Like, I'll never forget when we were at the NFL draft, and it was when it was in Las Vegas, and it's the first round coverage, and we find out that Tennessee and the Eagles made a trade, and you had A.J. Brown, who they did not want to pay, and they said, we're going to trade A.J. Brown for a first round pick, and I said that's a massive mistake by the general manager at the time, John Robinson. I said it was going to cost him his job. It ended up doing so, and not only that, if Derrick Henry cares about winning a championship, he would be the next player to get traded because he would request a trade. Now, Derrick Henry had an extremely successful run and has been one of the more dominant running backs that we've seen in a while with what he was able to do after a slow start in Tennessee. And then it got really crazy with just how physical and how bruising of a running back that he is. Now he's a little bit older, but I still think he could be a highly efficient player for probably 2 more seasons. And he goes to a Baltimore Ravens team, which it's a perfect match for 2 reasons. Number one is just the look and the appeal. Like Derrick Henry, I've already seen the Photoshops. He looks so tough in the Baltimore Ravens uniform. Like you put that purple on a big running back. I don't know, maybe it's just because I like Jamal Lewis growing up as a kid as a running back. There's just something about that. When you think of the Ravens, you think of running the football, and then you also just think of tough linebackers and tough defensive play, whether that was Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, Ed Reed, right? You just think iconic defense, and then you think of physical running backs, and you just think of a tough team. Everything Derrick Henry is kind of embodies what the Baltimore Ravens have been during their franchise. So that's number one. But number two, why I'm very optimistic on the Saquon Barkley deal, it's a similar reason why I'm very optimistic on the Derrick Henry deal. Because for the most part, the Eagles and the Ravens have something that's so tough to stop. And I know in the postseason it didn't work for Baltimore, and I know down the stretch for the Eagles it did not work. But you look at the last few years in football, when Lamar Jackson is healthy, it's not like he's had a lot of great weapons and a lot of great weapons at his arsenal. He really hasn't. Like, who's the best wide receiver recently that's been there in Baltimore? And maybe Zay Flowers this past year. But they don't usually have great wide receivers. And their running backs have been kind of running back by committee. It's whoever's been able to stay healthy. And look at the way that Lamar Jackson in the regular season has just been so dominant. Lamar Jackson put that team on his back to win 2 MVP awards. And I know that there's the postseason concerns. But now you add such a physical, bruising back and a bulldozer in Derrick Henry. That's a big-time move, even though Henry may only have 2 more good/really great years left in his body. But when you line up now, forget about the first 80 yards of the field. When you get into the red zone, usually you just think, okay, Jalen Hurts for the Eagles going to run the ball. Lamar Jackson for the Ravens going to run the ball. But now you have the potential threat and the creativity of 2 of the top, 5 or 7 running backs in the league? In Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. From a matchup perspective, that is just an absolute nightmare for defensive coordinators. Because you could think, all right, Lamar's going to run the football, or Jalen Hurts is going to run the football. And then in Philadelphia, they could flip it out on an RPO to Saquon Barkley. And he could just beat you to the pylon. And if you want to stack the box and you think, okay, Lamar's going to run to the left, you can hand the ball to Derrick Henry to the right. And you know he has no problem dragging 2 or 3 defenders. So just from a mental preparation standpoint, you get into the red zone and you're just like, who do I try to take away? Is it the quarterback or is it the running back? And just when you think you have one, they can get the ball to the other. So I can't wait to see that creativity. But with all that being said, even though I'm optimistic about Derrick Henry going to Baltimore, there is still the Patrick Mahomes tax, and there's still that prevailing thought of, well, if the Ravens couldn't do it last year, what makes me think they're going to do it in future seasons? Because last year, the NFL was as open as it's been in a while. You had home field advantage. The Chiefs didn't even play well offensively in that AFC Championship game. And in the big stage, your offense, it stalled. It failed. It broke down. It was terrible. So, yes, you could be optimistic and you could be excited about the Henry signing, and it will produce some big moments in the regular season. But let's see if there's any change come postseason time. And I still have an eyebrow raised if the Ravens are going to ever be able to get it together in the postseason, because you look at the AFC, I still think the Bengals, when Joe Burrow's healthy, is the best team in that division. And, you know, they made a great move taking Geno Stone away yesterday from the Ravens, who had 7 interceptions this past year. And not only that, it's like, okay, there's still that guy, Patrick Mahomes, that still rules the AFC. And he's been vulnerable the last 2 years, and it still hasn't been good enough for anybody else to go take the baton and prevent Mahomes from winning a championship or back-to-back championships. So yesterday, Saquon Barkley, he signs with the Philadelphia Eagles. Tiki Barber was doing his show live on WFAN, and this has now blown up. And Saquon Barkley, let me just preface it by saying this, you got to stop being so sensitive. You know, you read the quotes and you go, wow, Tiki said Saquon is dead to me. But then when you actually hear them, I kind of just scoff at the notion that this has become such a big controversy. This has dominated the media landscape in the last 24 hours. Here's Tiki Barber on The Fan.
The fact that Saquon would even contemplate going to play for that team in Philadelphia is insulting. Do not go to the Philadelphia Eagles, because if you do, that appreciation and respect and reverence that we all have for you, Saquon, will be lost. It'll be gone. You're going to turn into one of those people that we hate. Your jersey, that 2-6 that we see all over the stadium, it won't be worn anymore.
Gone.
It'll be gone.
Gone.
It'll be burned. In some cases.
I'm looking at
He's dead to us now.
Yeah, say it.
He's dead to us.
Because he won't say it.
You're dead to us, Saquon.
It's long dead to me.
That's really such a big deal. People are losing their minds over Tiki Barber just having fun on his radio show. And I understand, like, Giants fans shouldn't be happy that Saquon Barkley's going to Philadelphia. But your front office had multiple chances to keep him. So it goes both ways. But I don't think anything that Tiki Barber said right there was out of line. And I saw the reaction from Saquon Barkley yesterday. It's so abundantly clear that he just read the quote. And the quote could be interpreted in many different ways, and I could understand it. But when you listen to it, I kind of just laugh that this has even turned into a controversy. We'll get into more of that conversation, though, later on in the show. Drake is going back to the NCAA tournament, back-to-back seasons. Coach Darian DeVries is going to join us on the other side as they have won their conference once again. So we get closer and closer to March Madness getting underway. The bracket's going to be out coming up on Sunday. We can't wait for that. But first, let's get the latest CBS Sports Radio update with the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Looking for a career path with flexibility and great pay and benefits? Go to progressive.com/careers and apply online today. There's been a lot of turnover at the running back spot, and today comes another big move with the Ravens reportedly signing 4-time Pro Bowler and future Hall of Famer Derrick Henry to a 2-year deal. They had tried to trade for him midseason last year, and it failed. The Texans acquired Joe Mixon from the Bengals to ease the loss of Devin Singletary, while Patrick Queen is the latest to jump to the enemy, leaving Baltimore for a reported 3-year deal with the rival Steelers. The Falcons gave Kirk Cousins a boatload of money, so Why not? Surrounded with as much talent as possible, Atlanta adds to their offensive mix, signing former Bears wideout Darnell Mooney to a 3-year deal worth $39 million. And the Dolphins have come to terms with former Bucs linebacker Shaq Barrett on a 1-year deal worth $9 million. 17th ranked Gonzaga meets number 21 St. Mary's tonight for the West Coast Conference Championship. Also to be decided this evening, the CAA, Horizon, and NEC championships, with the winner headed to the NCAA tournament. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. In 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Drake is going back-to-back years to the NCAA tournament. I was watching their championship game up against Indiana State this past weekend, and their head coach is Darian DeVries, who's kind enough to join us right now as they get set to see where their name is going to get called and what seed they're going to get coming up on Sunday. Coach, first and foremost, congratulations. Appreciate the time, and thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So how do you kind of put this into words? Back-to-back years going to the NCAA tournament. This group win another Missouri Valley Conference tournament championship. When you were walking off the court and I had a few days to kind of process it, just what comes to mind?
Well, I think the best part is we get this whole week to enjoy it. That's the advantage of having your tournament a week before everybody else. Is got nobody to prepare for. We just get to sit and watch games and be a fan this week as we get closer and closer to Selection Sunday. But obviously a great feeling, being able to do it again this year with 10 new guys on our roster compared to last year where we had, guys that have been with us for a long time. So kind of two different unique teams that were able to accomplish it. But right now it's sit back and relax.
With the guys that did return, you always wonder when you have such a successful season, if you're going to be able to replicate it. Maybe with some success, guys get complacent. With the players that did return, why wasn't that the case for your squad?
Well, I think we had great leadership with Darnell Brody and then Tucker DeVries. So those two had played a lot of minutes, important minutes for us last year. And then we had four other guys too that contributed on last year's team. So they had that experience as well coming into the year. And I thought they did a great job of getting all the new guys kind of up to speed on the way we like to do things. And as the year went on, you could see them growing more and more together each day.
Darian DeVries here with us. His squad going to be playing in the NCAA tournament next week. He's the head coach of Drake, back-to-back Missouri Valley Conference championships. So now you've had sustained success, right? This is your third time going to be playing in the NCAA tournament as a head coach. Just how have you guys kind of built this thing, not only to move it in the right direction, but to sustain that success? Just wondering.
I think it all starts in your locker room. We have great players, great personalities in there. They all, believe in one another and what we're trying to do. I think that's important for any team. It's not just the starters. It's everybody in that locker room that has to be on the same page and connected towards, trying to continue to achieve higher level of success. And they've done a great job of maintaining that the last 6 years.
I could tell that you really enjoy coaching your son, Tucker, who's the star of the team. Sometimes I talk to coaches and they're like, that experience coaching my son didn't go as I envisioned it. Other guys absolutely love it. How has the experience been? I even see the smile on your face. I know it means so much, not only you, but also your family.
Yeah, I've absolutely loved it. I know Tucker has as well. It's one of those things when you're in this profession, you miss a lot of things when they're growing up, weekend tournaments and things because you're recruiting or having your own games. But now I get to do something a lot of parents can only dream of doing. And that's, getting to interact with your son on a daily basis in college. Normally you just get a call, maybe a few word answers, but I get to sit down and have lunch with him every day and the trips, the travel, the games, what an awesome experience.
Now, usually you have good scouting reports, but they did bring it up on the broadcast that you thought Tucker at first was going to be a walk-on, and that's what you used to tell the old staff at Creighton. So what happened with the scouting report of your own kid back in the day?
Yeah, I might have misevaluated that one. I think I was basing it solely off of his genetics, like he had no chance because of me. So that's where the evaluation came from. I was blaming it on my own genetics, that there's no way he would get to this level.
You know, I'm not comparing myself, obviously, to a basketball player, but my dad, when I first, who's in the radio business, he said to me, don't get involved in this business. You don't want to do that. Was there at all any skepticism from you? You know, I know it's probably a coach's dream to be able to coach their son and develop, your own kid, but was there ever any doubt when your son wanted to play a lot of basketball and maybe just trying to humble him a little bit and put some limitations on him?
No, not really. I think it's just something that we our whole family actually just love the sport, love to compete, and it's been such a fun process to watch him grow up and now obviously getting to coach him.
When did you start to realize, okay, maybe the scouting report wasn't so great? I have something special here.
I think between his sophomore and junior year, to let myself off the hook, he did grow 4 inches after the evaluation. So you got to factor that in. But no, I think that's when he kind of started to make his jump, that I maybe needed to reassess my evaluation skills.
Darian DeVries here with us, the head coach of Drake. A lot of people parachute into the sport this time of the year from afar and a broad surface. Everyone's going to talk about you. Everyone's going to talk about your son. What else do you want people to know about this year's version of Drake's basketball team?
I think when you watch them, just watch how much fun they have and how hard they play. I think that says a lot about what we have going as a program and the type of guys that we have and how much they just love competing. And that's what it's supposed to be about. And that's what we try to do, is have fun with it every day and hopefully success comes with it, and that certainly helps put more smiles on the faces.
Now, how do you kind of react? We always try to wonder where you guys are going to be placed. You guys play in a very good conference. You just won the conference. I saw Lenardi had you guys as a 10 seed. Do you think that's about right? That's about fair? That's what you guys are expecting when Selection Sunday rolls around?
Yeah, I think we're right in there, in that 10-11 seed, somewhere in there, and once you get in, it's just it's not really about what seed you are. It's you got to go play well now, and so whenever that pops up on that screen Sunday night, you get to work, and hopefully on that Thursday or Friday we can go put together a good 40 minutes.
Now, just wondering, how much does previous experience for you actually matter when that ball tips up in the air? They throw that ball up in the air on Thursday and Friday, through all your stops at Creighton and then what you've done so far in the NCAA tournament at Drake. How much does that at all help you as a coach as you get set to coach another tourney?
I think it helps a lot. I think, for our players, too, the ones that played in it last year. But as a coach, having been through it as an assistant and a head coach, I think it helps with your mindset of making sure that you don't get too wrapped up into the moment and forget to play. And that it sounds like, well, that's crazy, but it's easy to do. You got, friends and family and everybody, talking about how great you are and all these things. And then the game comes and it's like, oh yeah, we got to play the way we've played all year. If we want to try to advance and to make sure that you got the right mindset coming into that game.
Yeah, and you know this, when you're the underdog, if you have a good start and you're within striking distance or you have the lead at halftime, then all the pressure goes onto the other team and the entire building. Most of the time, it's, majority of it is a neutral crowd. Then the building starts to go with the underdog. So is there anything, without knowing the opponent right now that you're going to play, that you could do this week before Selection Sunday happens to kind of make sure that your team's ready to go coming up on Thursday or Friday?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a lot we can do in terms of game prep. I think it's more about us just staying sharp, making sure you maintain your edge that you have that's helped make you successful. But outside of that, it's there's not a lot. You're not putting in a whole new offense or defense or anything like that. So it's just staying sharp and try not to get anybody hurt. Between now and then too.
Yeah, last thing I'll ask you, Coach Darian DeVries from the Drake basketball team. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament once again next week. You were an assistant for a long time. When you got this job years ago, why did you know, or why did you think that this was the right fit for you and your family to be able to now have this run and have the success that we've seen the last few seasons?
Yeah, I saw a lot of similarities between Drake and Creighton, a school I was at for almost 20 years, and just thought there was a blueprint there that we could try and follow. And thankfully, we've had a lot of support here as well that's kind of rallied behind it over the course of these last 6 years, and that's given us a chance to be successful.
Well, Coach Darian DeVries, good luck coming up next week. We'll be excited to hear and see when your name's going to get called coming up on Sunday. Thanks so much for doing this.
Awesome. Thank you.
There you go. Darian DeVries joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. The Drake Bulldogs going back to the NCAA tournament. The Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the armed forces, DoD veterans, and their families. The members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week's player is Lakers big man Anthony Davis. What, did Stu write this? In Sunday's win over the Timberwolves, AD had 25 rebounds to go along with 3 blocks and a career-high 7 steals. He became the first player in NBA history to have a game of 25-plus points, 25-plus rebounds, 5-plus assists, 5-plus steals, and 3 blocks. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Avery in Michigan next up on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Avery, go ahead.
Hey, Zach, how you doing?
Doing great. What do you got for me?
I want to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers picking up Russell Wilson.
Sure, go ahead. All righty. I think that was a little bit of a prank phone call, or maybe something in the background when you're just going to say, we're going to talk about Russell Wilson, and you hear all those background noises and you don't say anything. All righty. Way to go. So good phone call out of Avery. Anyway, here's our poll question today. Out of these 4 moves, what's the best offseason signing so far on the offensive side of the ball? Is it Avery's Russell Wilson's going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Saquon to the Philadelphia Eagles, Kirk Cousins to the Atlanta Falcons, King Henry to the Baltimore Ravens? The early returns right now, overwhelming. 35.8% say King Henry to the Ravens, 26.2% Saquon to Philly, 25.7% Kirk to Atlanta, and 12.3% say Russ to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just out of those 4, real quickly, Santa and Stu, just give me the player's name that you think is the best move this offseason on the offensive side of the ball between Kirk going to Atlanta, Russ to the Steelers, Saquon to Philadelphia, and Derrick Henry going to the Baltimore Ravens. Stu?
I'll go Kirk Cousins.
Okay, a little quarterback. Stu, you like that, to Atlanta to go win the NFC South. Samter, what do we got cooking?
It's between Saquon and King Henry. I think they're both equally amazing. Like, those are 2 quarterbacks who need running backs, who like to have running backs along with them with the RPO. Both of them, I think, are going to thrive in those offenses. Both of them make both of those Super Bowl contending teams better and a better contender. I have a hard time choosing between the 2. I guess I'll go King Henry to the Ravens because I still think he has a couple years left. But Saquon could be amazing in Philly.
I'm going to go with Saquon. And the reason I'm going with Saquon is because out of those teams that I just mentioned, I think the Eagles still have the best chance to go win a Super Bowl or participate in a Super Bowl. And not only that, the Eagles needed something positive to kind of latch onto. Because ever since basically Thanksgiving occurred, right when they beat that Bills team, ever since that game, it was just negativity out of negativity and bad moments because of the poor product they were putting on the field. This Saquon move to Philly, it gets under the skin of Giants fans, so that helps the Eagles fan, right, in that kind of childish rivalry that always occur from time to time from some of the reaction we see in social media, but it also gives Eagles fans something to look forward to instead of all the doom and gloom that has occurred pretty much since early December did roll around. So that's why I go Saquon to Philadelphia, which is right now in second place. We'll continue that conversation and so much more. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll get into a little Justin Fields talk next.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio, hour number 2 of our radio program. Ahman Green going to join us, former Packers running back, coming up 20 minutes from now. We'll get his thoughts on Aaron Jones getting cut, going to the Minnesota Vikings, and also, you know, that'll happen because the Green Bay Packers landed the services of Josh Jacobs. And you look at the guaranteed money in that contract, because yesterday we were talking about, you saw the total money of the deal and the guaranteed money seemed to be really low. It's basically a year-to-year contract, even though it's over the span of 4 years. When you do look back at the deal for Josh Jacobs, I think a lot of people at first said, wow, what an overpay at $48 million. But when you further go through the breakdown, it's really not one of those deals that he's probably ever going to see. And I like Josh Jacobs a lot, and he's still young at the age of 26, but it's probably not one of those deals where he's going to see all $48 million. It's 14, according to Albert Breer, it is $14.8 million in 2023. It's then $12.5 to sign. It's $23 million over 2 years, and then $34.5 million over 3 years. So they could take it year to year, as the only guaranteed money is in that signing bonus, which is $12.5 million. So that was reported accurately yesterday. I know when we first saw it, a lot of us are like, that doesn't really make much sense. $48 million is the total money, but then the guaranteed was only $12.5 million. It just once again shows you that the running back market, it could get dressed up like it's this great market, but it's really not a great market anymore. And Santa, that was a surprising part to me. I thought we were going to have to wait on these running backs. But you get Tony Pollard, who winds up in Tennessee. Saquon goes to Philadelphia. Aaron Jones gets cut. He quickly lands on a $7 million deal in Minnesota. Josh Jacobs goes to the Green Bay Packers. Derrick Henry now goes to the Baltimore Ravens. Austin Eckler lands with the Washington Commanders. And I know there's a few more that did transpire. Joe Mixon was in a trade. Zach Moss lands in Cincinnati. Then Joe Mixon gets traded to the Houston Texans. I was not anticipating kind of where the market has been for the running backs the last 2 years, for the running backs to just fly off the shelf. But that's what happened in these first 2 days of the legal tampering window. And I guess it's going to be two things. One, I think that maybe these running backs had a little bit of fatigue and they go, okay, we know what we're going to get. Just take what we could get. And the longer you wait, the offer is not going to get that much better. And the other part is, I just kind of think that the teams, they could put out big money, but they're even realizing it's basically just what the guarantee is. From the reporting, it didn't seem like the Packers intended to go pursue Josh Jacobs. But then when you hear the price and you do your due diligence and you get a player who's 26 and you get rid of Aaron Jones, who was a consummate professional and he is a stud, but Aaron Jones is hovering right there around 30, and you could go get a 4-year, $48 million deal, and you could say that in air quotes, and really all you have to guarantee is $12.5 million. You compare that to that situation, or Aaron Jones, who was in the final year of his deal. Yeah. I know a lot of people looked at that sideways and said, why can't you keep both? But once Jones, and I don't blame him, didn't restructure, this entire situation, the way that it played out for the Packers, I think they got better at the running back position. Not like drastically better, but slightly better. So I think the running backs are starting to understand the market more. But then also it could also factor in that, man, after going through this for some of these guys for 2-3 years, it's like just take what you could get. And in Saquon's case, and you had Tony Pollard, right? That's another guy. With Tony Pollard, he landed in Tennessee. It's just like with some of these guys, they went through the franchise tag a year ago, and maybe this is the new formula for running backs. Like Saquon Barkley got $10 million last year, right? Tony Pollard got his franchise tag money. Josh Jacobs got his franchise tag money. You get that guaranteed money up front, and then the following year, because that number is always going to be rich and beneficial to you, and then the following year, that's when you go get your additional guaranteed money. And for someone like Saquon, it was more than he was getting in New York. I think the last contract offer in New York, it was like $23 million. And in this one in Philadelphia, it's $26 million. And for Josh Jacobs, even though it's $12.5 million to sign and only that, and I got to think Josh Jacobs is going to be on the Packers for the next 2 years, so he'll end up getting $23 million. If you could see 3 years, then it's $34.5 million. So there is some understanding, I believe, Santa, from the running backs, but then also it's probably a little fatigue as well, because it does get tiring for the last 2 years having this conversation about how the running backs are not getting valued as they once were.
I agree. I think it's probably a combination of what you're saying, along with the fact that it was just such a saturated market with so many starting running backs out there. But I think the main thing, you look at these deals that they got, right? Saquon was the only guy who got really a big deal. Josh Jacobs a little bit too. 3 years, 37 for Saquon. 4 years, 48. That's $12 million per for those guys, right? So like back in the day, these guys were asking for 18, 19, 20. That's what they were hoping for. They were trying to get to that point that some of these top wide receivers are getting to. And I think they've just kind of gotten fatigued and they've gotten realistic about their opportunities. And so 3 years, 37 is fine. That's what running backs were making 10 years ago. $10 million a year, $12 million a year. So you look at Derrick Henry, 2 years, $16 million. Tony Pollard, 3 years, $20 million. That's $8 million a year. So I think the reason partly was saturated market, and also these guys are just like,
and they're coming off the tag, most of these guys.
Yeah, give me 8 to 12 million, and I'll be fine. I don't need that 18, 19.
And that's the other thing. The longer you wait, like once you get off the franchise tag, if they just signed a 1 year prove it deal, then that's another year where a team could just run you into the ground. And that's the position in the NFL that everyone says that's the shortest lifespan for an NFL career is the NFL running back. And also, it doesn't help from a leverage standpoint when a lot of these teams that have won Super Bowls, like you look at the last 10 Super Bowl champions, there's not a bell cow back. You know, the one that you could argue was a bell cow back was Marshawn Lynch. But that's not even the first person you think of. Like, that wasn't the identity of their team. But outside of that, it's like, okay, the Patriots, I can give you about 30 running backs that they've had. The Eagles had 3 running backs that year with Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount, and Corey Clement. The Chiefs, heck, who was in their first Super Bowl? Williams or something like that? And then that guy landed in Jacksonville. I forget his name. And then recently it was Isaiah Pacheco. So you could rotate through running backs in this league and still win. And also, on the offensive side of the ball, you only have so much money. And I'm not a big salary cap money guy, but the quarterback gets paid a king's ransom. The wide receivers now get paid a king's ransom. And the offensive linemen get paid a king's ransom too. So I think it's a little bit of both, like we're saying. Fatigue and then also having a better understanding of what the market is. All righty, here is the confusing one. Justin Fields. When we get into quarterbacks, we went through this yesterday, and we tried to figure out where is Justin Fields going to land. What has changed from last night? Well, Sam Darnold gets a $10 million contract with the Minnesota Vikings. And now there is a growing belief, and it was going to be tough either way because it's in division, and quarterback trades usually don't happen in division. You got to go back years ago. McNabb going from Philly to D.C., Drew Bledsoe going from the Patriots to the Buffalo Bills, but quarterback trades in division don't usually happen. So Minnesota was always a long shot, but now a lot of people believe it's going to be a mixture of Sam and then whatever rookie quarterback they could get at 11, or they maybe trade up because the Vikings were linked to being rumored to trading up in the draft last year. So now I go through a lot of these destinations, and a lot of them are already filling up because Kirk, he signs with Atlanta. Russ goes to Seattle. That takes away 2 destinations for Justin Fields. The Patriots, we were talking about them potentially being a rumored destination yesterday. Well, they go out and they sign Jacoby Brissett. So I think that's the perfect bridge quarterback, and they'll probably take a quarterback at 3. You already had Sam Howell with the Commanders. You know they were moving on from him, but now they just brought in Marcus Mariota. So I don't think they're going to bring in Justin Fields and then draft a quarterback at 2. I still think the Raiders are in play, even though they did sign Gardner Minshew the other day. But outside of the Raiders, there's really not a great fit for Justin Fields. So I'll just throw one more name into the conversation and one more team where he could start. Because there's now a growing belief, it feels like, that Justin Fields may have to be quarterback 2 somewhere next year. Or we'll get into one other theory in just a bit. But I did see today, not that he was starting. I know he had that one game up against Philly. But that Drew Lock is leaving Seattle. He's a free agent, and he's signing with the New York Giants. Take the Giants out of the mix, too, because now you have Daniel Jones and Drew Lock on the roster and a possibility of adding a quarterback in at 6. So what about the Seahawks? Like Geno Smith, I think this is the last year of him having guaranteed money on his contract. So Geno Smith is now the lone quarterback on the roster. Now, you could argue maybe the Seahawks are going to get a quarterback in the draft. They're sitting there at pick 16. So you'd probably have to trade up, or maybe a McCarthy falls. Maybe Michael Penix Jr. does fall. Maybe Drake May starts to fall. Then you feel like you're in range. And I've said this before. Whoever is the next quarterback in Seattle is walking into a good situation. And that was even with me having the belief that Tyler Lockett was going to get traded this offseason with 2 years left on the deal and the logjam that they have at wide receiver. But I just saw right before the legal tampering window did open that he restructured his contract. So they obviously prefer to keep him. And you already have DK Metcalf. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba, who I think when he gets more reps, he's going to live up to that first-round pick. And you saw a little bit of it down the stretch. So I think Seattle is a very attractive destination for quarterbacks. So I look at a Justin Fields and all the extra capital that Seattle's received from the Russ deal too, and now that's kind of run its course. I would have no problem trading. You don't have to trade a second-round pick anymore. Like, I think right now, you call up the Bears tomorrow and give them a third-round pick, I think they're doing it. So I think Geno's fine. He's solid. But I do think Geno's one of those quarterbacks where at some point throughout the year, you're going to say, I could do better. Or, man, I'm kind of tired of the Geno Smith experience. Where he said once, it was a great line, that people wrote me off, but I didn't write back. There's going to be a moment in the season where people are going to start to write back and say, Geno, you're back to what we thought you were. And you could have Justin Fields there waiting in the wings for a third-round pick, and you don't have to extend him. I would take that flyer if I'm the Seattle Seahawks. I take a risk on Justin Fields, but you could then argue maybe Seattle wants to move up in the draft to do so. And maybe they want a McCarthy. Maybe they want a Michael Penix Jr. and keep him in the state of Washington. So I would suggest, and it's slim pickings here, I think the Raiders are an option, and I would say maybe the Seahawks are a team that we should monitor. But really, if it's not one of those two teams, we're talking about QB2 for Justin Fields. We're talking about maybe Philadelphia. We're talking about, well, you could throw Cleveland out of the mix today because they just got Jameis Winston. And I know Mike White is with the Dolphins, but what happens if Tua has an injury? Justin Fields could then be in play there. Anthony Richardson, his backup's Gardner Minshew. Now Gardner Minshew is off to the Raiders. Maybe Justin Fields wants to go to the Colts in case you have another Anthony Richardson injury. 49ers just lost Sam Darnold. They traded away last year Trey Lance. They could use a backup quarterback. What about Justin Fields going to the 49ers where maybe Brock Purdy's not as good as what he was last year, or maybe he gets hurt? And then that raises the other point here, Samter. If it gets to that point where no team wants to trade for him to be the starter, and it's just a backup, you think there's any way Chicago could keep Justin Fields as their backup? And yes, Caleb Williams would be the day one starter, but you do kind of the Sam Bradford, Carson Wentz situation from a few years ago, where you just wait for someone naturally to get hurt, and then the market for Justin Fields pops back up. Because what the market is telling you right now, what the teams are telling you right now, they trust the players in the draft more than Justin Fields, or the way that we as fans view Justin Fields is not as attractive as the way that the teams view Justin Fields. Like, I look back when Justin Fields was playing well, and I'm like, oh, they should keep Justin Fields and trade it. And even RG3 said it with us the other day. Now it's like, well, the rest of the league's telling you this guy isn't as good as what we thought he could be. So now you have to take Caleb Williams. But that's the fascinating part to me. If it came to a scenario where it's QB2 on another team or QB2 on your own team, can you find a way to actually keep him and store him on your roster as QB2 when you know he's not going to be happy with the situation?
I mean, I don't think it matters if he's happy or not. He's on your roster, and he's going to have to just deal with it because if no one else wants him, that's just the way it's going to be. I guess my only concern is how would it impact Caleb Williams? Would it be a positive influence? Like, hey, I got this guy who's a former superstar quarterback who's nipping at my heels. So if I screw up,
Superstar quarterback in college,
sure,
not in the NFL.
Sure, but a guy that has a name, a guy who could be a starting quarterback. If I slack off or if I'm not studying the playbook enough, maybe
but here's why. The only way Fields would get on the field is because of injury. When you take Caleb Williams, and Caleb Williams has drawn comparisons in the draft process to Patrick Mahomes, and you have a city that's never really had a quarterback in Chicago, there's no way you're pulling the plug at any point in year one, even if it gets to like Bryce Young level of incompetence in year one. You're not taking Williams off the field.
No, and I don't think it's necessarily about taking Williams off. It's more just having somebody to push him. I could be wrong. Caleb Williams is a superstar talent, but there's something about maybe some of the smoke and the noise that's come out about Caleb Williams over the past year and a half that just makes me wonder about how dedicated he is, maybe his mental fortitude about being focused game in and game out. So maybe having Justin Fields on the practice field in the quarterback room is just a little bit of a fire under his ass so he doesn't become complacent. Now, I don't know this for sure.
Yeah, I don't really buy that.
There's been a lot of smoke around the Caleb Williams
Sure, because
camp.
it's prospect fatigue, and people just see him jump into his mom's eyes, his mom's arms after a game and cry, and people like lose their mind over that. Like, there's really not much to question Caleb Williams about. He's one of the finest prospects that we've ever seen.
On the field, I think the questions have been about his off-the-field locker room, like in his mind, in his head kind of stuff.
His own teammates, they never have an issue with him. The teammates at USC, we talked to Jerry Rice's son, they absolutely adore him. I just think it's once again, this has been a guy that we tabbed as the guy. And then when you tab someone as the guy, you try to find ways not to select him. He's going to be the number one pick. It's not even going to be close. He's the future of the franchise. And I don't see a way that you could roll into the season with Justin Fields on the roster along with Caleb Williams. It's not fair to Justin Fields. And also, it's like I don't think Caleb Williams would ever be intimidated by Justin Fields. I don't think he needs Justin Fields to light a fire under his ass. If he does, then I don't think he should be the number one pick. And I've been around Caleb Williams once. Something he does not lack is confidence. That is for sure. All right, Ahman Green going to join us on the other side. It is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
And this portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. Should have Ahman Green coming up momentarily on the show. But first, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Venlo in Connecticut. He's next up on the Zach Gelb Show. Venlo, what's happening?
Hey, what's going on, Zach? How are you, man?
Doing fantastic. What do you got cooking for me today?
Fantastic. First and foremost, thanks for taking my call.
Yep, you got it.
And I just want to weigh in real quick on the Tiki, which side, Tiki or Saquon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on the side of Saquon, man, because I'm a real Giant fan. I go all the way back to Hugh McElhenney, Tucker Frederickson, YA, all the way back, never left. I live in Connecticut, but I'm from Amityville. Grew up in Amityville and then lived in Huntington before moving to Connecticut. So I think we all should be happy for Saquon. The only reason that I would have an issue, my issue still would not be with Saquon because he's a Jersey cat. He got closer to home.
No, what it is, Venlo, is he got money from Philadelphia that the Giants weren't willing to give him. He gave the Giants every opportunity, and the Giants didn't want to give him a deal that exceeded $23 million guaranteed from their last contract offer. But the point that I was making with Tiki is you read the Tiki quote and you go, oh, that's bad. But then when you listen to it, it's clearly tongue-in-cheek. And everyone's just so sensitive now. Tiki did nothing wrong yesterday. He's hosting a radio show just like I'm hosting a radio show, and he gave a reaction that related to the opinion probably of many Giant fans. All right, a lot of movement on the running back market. We got Saquon Barkley going to Philadelphia. We have Josh Jacobs landing with the Green Bay Packers, and then Aaron Jones getting released and winding up in Minnesota. Derrick Henry is going to the Baltimore Ravens to team up with Lamar Jackson. Let's go out to the guest line right now. Welcome in an excellent former running back, and that, of course, is Ahman Green kind enough to join us right now once again on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Ahman, always great to talk to you. Thanks so much for doing this. How you been?
I'm being good, Zach. Same here. Always good to talk to you, talk some football. And now we're talking my neck of the woods, some running backs and how they've been, treated and what they got paid this year.
Yeah, well, here's the fascinating part of it. We were talking about a little bit before you popped on in the last segment. Yep. I'm surprised how many running backs have already agreed to deals. Is this the running back starting to understand the market more and what they're actually going to get, or is it just a little bit of fatigue from these guys that they've now seen this song and dance the last 2 years where they're not getting the contracts that they're used to getting?
I believe it's a mixture of both. I think right now they know they got to strike while the iron's hot. So if they get a good offer and it makes sense and they could talk to their agents or they could just look around the league, it's just a mathematical problem. Addition here, who has more yardage than me and what they're getting paid going on that scale. Once you see that, it is not rocket science to figure it out. And then you get all this drama right behind you, and right away, then you get into the rest of your offseason, going back to your wherever you train in the offseason and get, I say, 100% into that, then get ready to get with your team and learn the playbook and learn your players, the new coaches and everything.
Yeah, I also think sometimes players don't like getting slapped with the franchise tag, but now we've seen Tony Pollard get it last year. You saw Saquon get it last year, Josh Jacobs as well. You go get that $10 million guaranteed, and then it's just the next season, okay, take what I could go get on the open market, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it as this. Look, you're going to be on one-year contract, and then you're back into negotiating a deal. And that is a good place because then it's new money, and then it could be with the team that you already at, and that'll be great. But if not, this is the part of the offseason where I tell fans all the time, hey, this is the business part of professional sports. Players, coaches understand it. The agents also, this is their world. This is the time where they get up and do their conversation and kind of shine for the players. So if they have better agents, they understand what they're going to get out of the deal.
Talking to Ahman Green. So how did you react to it in the last 24 to 48 hours? Josh Jacobs winds up with the Green Bay Packers, then Aaron Jones release. And now we know he's found a new home in division with the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, man, I was like, wow. So they trade one good running back for another. This is a slightly better running back, but only other than size, like durability. I think that's it. That's the biggest point I've seen for my good friend Aaron Jones. The health factor was a thing for him over the last several years, but for a business standpoint, that is going to reek in the mind. That's going to be a reminder, to any GM or head coach, your durability. And so he was a little beat up this season. He came back, finished greatly in the last 3 games for the Packers, including the playoffs, but still it lingered in guys' heads. So is the durability factor. So bringing in Josh Jacobs, who is a little bit more built like a tank. He's 5'10", he's 223. He can run, catch. He can do everything that Aaron Jones can do. He just has the durability factor. So having Jordan Love in his second year, a guy, as we know, has been 100% proven what he can do as a starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. So now having him into a set of young wide receivers that they already have that prove their point as well to get that team to the playoffs. So this offense for the NFC North is going to be a problem for every other team that they face in 2024.
It's kind of crazy where we were before this season, the last 2 years of the Aaron Rodgers drama. Then they finally trade Aaron Rodgers. Love gets his opportunity. Down the stretch, we saw Green Bay get better. They had the big playoff performance up against the Dallas Cowboys, and they couldn't get the job done at the end in a game that they probably should have won, looking back at it, up against the Niners. Like a full year later, a lot of people are very confident with this Packers team moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I said from day one, support this guy. I do a couple podcasts myself, and what I said in that, just like when Aaron came in, and I say go back 30, 40, almost 40 years now, when Brett came in, give him the support as any other quarterback. Don't doubt him. Give him that little margin of error because you're going to have that. Sitting on the shelf for 4 years, watching Aaron Rodgers, learning from him, how he plays. And we already knew in the first couple throws and first couple games that he took some of Aaron's kind of, game stuff where he has that back foot throw where it kind of just seeks right over the defender's hand for either touchdown or completion for a first down. So he paid attention, took some good things off of Aaron and was able to mold it into his game. And then the confidence just grew game by game. And I saw, like I said, that last stretch, not only Aaron Jones, but Jordan Love just picked it up a notch, having over 4,000 yards, having over 20 touchdowns in his first year as a starter. I was thinking that was going to be year 2. I figured year 1 was going to be little bumps and bruises, But no, year one ended on a high end. So for year two, hopefully we'll see how it goes. Maybe no sophomore slump, but something where you become a super sophomore, along with now, like you said, Josh Jacobs on the roster.
Ahman Green here with us. We were always sold about the potential with Jordan Love.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that end ceiling is for Jordan Love as a quarterback in this league?
It's so early enough. I think that ceiling is still at a high mark. We're going to see. We just saw a scratch of what he can do, playing a full season and then getting it, because it wasn't until probably, I would say, middle of November where it's like, okay, I got this. He had a couple mistakes early in the year where I remember he had a fourth down situation. He's under center and he flinches. He gets the offsides flag. So little stuff like that. He matured game by game. So now he's at a point where all that is now learning experience. He could go back and watch film, correct those mistakes with Matt LaFleur and the rest of this offense and the rest of the players around him, and come into the season full bearing. I say the only thing we just got to wait for, as we know, because it's football, is injuries for everybody across the board. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. And then we're going to have a Packer offense that's going to push Detroit Lions like they did this past year. And it's going to be interesting in NFC North.
Yeah. Do you think that gap between those two teams is pretty damn close? Is that what you're saying?
It's getting close, yes. I mean, right now, it's the leader in that division is the Detroit Lions. They have a defense, they have an offense, even though they made some changes too offensively. But it's going to be a nice little game when that game comes around in the fall.
Ahman Green here with us. Let me get some of your reaction to some of the other running back moves. Saquon Barkley landed in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts. Man, yes. I don't even know how you're going to defend that when you get inside the red zone and you're 20 yards away from a touchdown.
Well, also for us, defensive coordinators are going to sleep unwell, and some of the linebackers around there as well. But for Sirianni and that offense, having losing pieces like Kelsey gone, Hall of Fame center, and then this is going to, bring in somebody like him and whoever replaces Kelsey to take over the leadership in the offensive line. They should be feeling pretty good because they're like, all right, we already got the kid Hurts that we know can run and throw. And then now we got this other kid that could come in and run the ball, catch the ball, help us with pass protection and a threat down the field either way, running the ball or catching. So then another leader on that roster. So it will fill in holes and gaps and just see how it fits in with what they already have at wide receiver with A.J. Brown and some of the other receivers. So it's just going to be interesting in that NFC East, where, as we know, it was a little bit on the down stroke in terms of overall competition, with the Commanders down and Cowboys just getting to the playoffs again, but then falling short again, not playing up to their par as usual.
You talk about the fit with Saquon and Jalen Hurts. How about the fit in the AFC with Derrick Henry landing with one Lamar Jackson?
All I say is problem. That's a problem for a lot of defenders where you got to deal with Lamar's legs and his arms, but now you got a guy that when he gets the ball, he's going to make defensive backs, mostly a few linebackers, think about how they come in to tackle him. And then that's another layer of what the Baltimore Ravens offense already has. They already are a smash mouth football team. They like to run the ball, mix it in with the RPO, and then every now and then try to beat you over top when the back end is beat up because they have to deal with the run game. So it fits perfect into what Harbaugh calls and what Lamar Jackson likes to do with his play calling to execute the play. So this is going to get guys, I say this is going to put everybody else on notice in the AFC North right there, from Pittsburgh to Cincinnati, to know, hey, we got another hammer coming down, and this is going to be interesting how we're going to try to figure out how to stop this crew.
And it's two totally different approaches for defenders. I wonder if they kind of bottle up Henry a little bit and then they just unleash him in the fourth quarter, because it takes such a toll on defenders to try to defend Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get a bruising back like Henry in the fourth quarter when everybody's gassed. Man, that's a recipe for disasters for defenses.
Yeah, he's a four-quarter horse, man. I mean, that was something I was able to do during my time on the football field, and I paid attention to the body mechanics, or I say the body language of defenders come fourth quarter. When I saw guys kind of holding their hips and taking heavy, deep breaths, I'm like, I got him. Let's go. And so I've seen Derrick Henry play games like that, not necessarily the way I thought of it, but he's probably got me by 50 pounds. So now, he's a guy, along with the run game, that Lamar can bring to the game, and all the other weapons they have in terms of receivers, and then how stout their defense are. They can definitely slow that clock down offensively, and then make it hard for guys to try to score, because it won't be much time on the clock once they get the ball back going against that Baltimore Ravens defense.
Let me just end you with this. I know you started your career with the Seattle Seahawks, but most remember you for your time in Green Bay. We're trying to figure out where Justin Fields is going to land. I know he's with the Bears now, but they're going to draft Caleb Williams. You know, I see today that Drew Lock winds up with the Giants. Geno Smith, he's fine. He's under contract, but I don't think anyone believes he's the franchise quarterback. Should Seattle maybe place a call to the Bears and give up a third-round pick or whatever it costs to go land Justin Fields in a trade?
I mean, that'll be that is an interesting option right there for the Seahawks, and I say for Justin. I mean, for me, I've been looking at this Justin Fields saga since he got in the NFL, and for me, it's just an unfortunate situation because it has been fondled by the coaches and then now the GM because they're going to push off a guy that has all the talent in the world, in my opinion, to be a quarterback in NFL. You just got to make sure you talk to him, and when you set up the game plan, starting in the offseason now, coaches start devising their game plan for the regular season and ask Justin those questions like, what run plays do you like to run? What pass plays do you like to throw? And here's are the adjustments. On certain passes, you got to learn how to throw this deep pass like this with, in certain situations, you got to ask him that. And then he'll give you the feedback. And then you got to go from him. And that is a coach making the better plays for your player. You try to put your players in the best situation. And I didn't see that over the next few years past few years for Justin and Eberflus and the coaching staff. They figured it out, when they didn't have to, when it didn't make sense. So now, unfortunately, he's in the market. And so any team, especially Seattle, that has the defense, that has players around him still in terms of run game and pass, in terms of receivers, he's going to flourish. I think he's ready to kind of go out there and let his wings spread so he could get out there and show what he did at Ohio State. He was a passing quarterback, very accurate. And then now he's got to have some semblance of basically tranquility, and because there's always been turbulent around him from the pass rush coming at him and then not knowing communication amongst coaches, as we saw earlier last year. So hopefully he can get somewhere where it's just a cool, calm, and collective. Here's the playbook. This is what you need to know, and here's your outlets, here's your throws, and this is your audibles, and make it real easy for him because he's a guy that I say if anything, he deserves that type of situation to be the athlete so he could show his talent that is out there.
He is Ahman Green. Ahman, always appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this. You be well.
Hey, no problem, Zach. Thanks for having me.
There you go. Ahman Green, Packer legend, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio to kind of take a look at the running back market that's been going crazy the last few days, where the numbers may not be where the players want it on a contract perspective, but a lot of running backs landing in new homes. And Aaron Jones away from Green Bay now in Minnesota. And as we know, Josh Jacobs is going to replace him in Green Bay. All righty, let's get the latest CBS Sports Radio update with the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio.
Sports Flash.
Well, the Titans didn't want a future Hall of Famer anymore, so that was just fine with the Ravens, who were reportedly signing Derrick Henry to a 2-year deal worth at least $16 million and $9 million in guaranteed money, and the Ravens get their man after failing to land him in a trade last season. After losing Devin Singletary to free agency, the Texans are reportedly trading for the Bengals' Joe Mixon. The Steelers made a big splash on defense, signing Patrick Queen away from the rival Ravens on a 3-year deal worth $41 million, while Shaq Barrett stays in the Sunshine State, going from Tampa to Miami on a 1-year deal worth $9 million. Kirk Cousins has a new target to throw to with the Falcons, who come to terms with former Bears wideout Darnell Mooney on a 3-year deal worth $39 million, and Drew Lock goes to the Giants on a 1-year deal. Kenny Moore re-signs with the Colts, 3 years, $30 million. The Orlando Magic have given head coach Jamal Mosley a 4-year extension, with Orlando currently 5th in the Eastern Conference. 4 more automatic bids to the NCAA tournament will be on the line tonight. The West Coast Conference, the CAA, the Horizon, and NEC will all be decided. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is Bart Winkler. I've got a new show weeknights. Join me for the Bart Winkler Show starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, only on CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
National champion from Michigan, Cornelius Johnson, going to join us coming up 15 minutes from now. He gets set to prepare for the NFL draft that comes your way at the end of April. But before we get to that, let's just do a few winners and losers from the offseason cycle so far, with the legal tampering window underway since yesterday at noon Eastern, and the new league year will start tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, where all these deals that are agreed upon to will then become official. I'm going to give you my winners right out of the gate. I have 3 of them, and then I have 3 losers. The 3 winners, I think, are the Baltimore Ravens, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Atlanta Falcons. Let me start with the Ravens and the Eagles. Both of those teams had miserable ends to their season. The Ravens were just dismantling every team that they played. Like, they crushed the San Francisco 49ers in the regular season. But then come playoff time, had a very pedestrian first half up against the Texans, then played a solid 30 minutes of football, and their offense was a complete and utter no-show up against the Kansas City Chiefs in that AFC Championship game in your backyard in Baltimore. Today, the Baltimore Ravens, yes, they lost Geno Stone. Yes, they lost Patrick Queen, as Stone goes to the Bengals and Queen winds up with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But on offense, they bring in Derrick Henry. And you heard it from Ahman Green a little bit earlier. I think the way that they implement Derrick Henry into the game plan with Lamar Jackson as your quarterback is just going to wear down defenses. I still don't think Baltimore wins a Super Bowl or gets to a Super Bowl with this duo, but this offense now has a more intimidating identity than it had last year. And now you're going to get Zay Flowers going from year 1 to year 2. Mark Andrews, you hope he could stay healthy. He's one of the better tight ends in the league. And then you have an explosive quarterback who right now is a top 5 quarterback in the sport. I have him as the 4th best quarterback in the sport. Mahomes 1, Burrow 2, Allen 3, then Lamar Jackson 4. And you add in Derrick Henry, who, even if you could say, oh, well, how much longer is he be able to go at this rate? I got to think bare minimum Derrick Henry's still giving you 2 more really solid seasons. So I love what the Ravens did. The Eagles, on defense, you get a guy that got 10-plus sacks last year in Bryce Huff. You will increase his workload. But then on offense, you gave something that I think has finally galvanized this fan base, where for ever since December 1st, this has been a very negative Eagles fan base, and deservedly so. The team had one of the worst collapses you'll ever see. And then you lose Fletcher Cox to retirement. You lose Jason Kelsey to retirement. And it was like, uh-oh, are they going to be able to ever right this ship again? And you bring in Saquon. And I know the Giants are down and out, but you take him from a divisional rival. You have Howie Roseman being aggressive. And you just look at offense. This is still going to be a top 5 offensive line in football. Hurts is going to get better from what he was a year ago in the second half of the season. You got A.J. Brown. You got Devontae Smith. And now the running back room has got better by adding in Saquon Barkley with Dallas Goedert then, too, as your tight end. So this Eagles team, it's finally moving forward and moving on from what was just a giant cluster, you know what, from the end of last season. I think Saquon starts to move this thing forward. And finally, I go with the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons realized last year that going with Desmond Ridder and then having that coach in Arthur Smith, who tried to make him this franchise quarterback, was a massive mistake. So at the Super Bowl, we kind of got the sense from Arthur Smith that you want a veteran quarterback, and then ultimately you look for the long-term plan. Now, they give a 4-year deal to Kirk Cousins, $180 million, $100 million guaranteed. Kirk's in his mid-30s, coming off the Achilles injury. But you got to look at where the Falcons are. The Falcons just have average quarterback play last year. They easily win that division. They have a good young secondary anchored by Jesse Bates, and you have A.J. Terrell. You then on offense have Bijan Algier. You have Drake London, and I think Kyle Pitts is going to do a massive 180 from the last 2 years. And now you get Kirk Cousins, who is a good quarterback, but not a great quarterback. I think the Falcons right now are a 10-17 next year. I think the Falcons win that division next year. And I like what this front office did, going out there and getting their quarterback and getting a known commodity for the next, let's say, 2 years, because you don't know how someone's body's going to end up aging on out when you look at the 4 years of this contract. But I'm fine with that risk at $100 million guaranteed. So those are my winners Ravens, Eagles, and Falcons. Now, as for my losers, I got to start with the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones made one of the more fraudulent statements that you'll ever hear. Because Jerry Jones is a salesman now. That's what he is. Jerry Jones puts more of a priority on creating headlines and being the person that leads the drama and stirs the drama in Dallas rather than trying to go out and actually win a Super Bowl. We all laughed when he said that the Cowboys are going to be all in. Like, what have the Cowboys then been for the last 20 years? The Cowboys, they always put together a good team, but they don't put together a great team. And I look at this Dallas team, you can't have your owner say, we're going to be all in. And then the first 2 days of free agency happens, and you basically just sit on your hands and do jack. It's a bad look for the Dallas Cowboys. And you have the Eagles, who is your direct rival in that division, your direct competition, because the Giants don't have their act together. The Commanders still years away. The Eagles got better on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball this offseason. I'm going to say the Saints are a loser. The Saints had Derek Carr last year. They had the most talent in the NFC South. They didn't win the division. And then this offseason, you've seen the Falcons get better in the direct competition in that division, and also Baker Mayfield back in Tampa Bay, Mike Evans back in Tampa Bay. And the Saints just have a team that they keep on telling you if we could stay healthy. I feel like that's been the story of the MO for the Saints the last 2 years, and they don't end up staying healthy. And then finally, it's the Minnesota Vikings. You lose Kirk Cousins. You bring in Sam Darnold. You still don't have a deal done with Justin Jefferson, which just makes me hot, because you should have got this deal done last year. And it's really malpractice to the franchise to not get the deal done last year, because you run the risk of the unknown. And you run that risk of Justin Jefferson getting upset, and maybe he starts to say, okay, I don't want to be here anymore. Now, he hasn't given any indication that he doesn't want to be in Minnesota. I think he loves playing with the Vikings. He's everything that a franchise dreams about for a wide receiver. You know, he does everything the right way. All he does is produce. He puts up mega numbers. Like, this deal should have already got done, but it hasn't yet. And now you take away Kirk Cousins. And sure, you could have this plan in the draft at 11 to take a quarterback and to move up, and then you eventually have the guy, and maybe Sam Darnold's a bridge guy for a few weeks. But I look at Minnesota right now. 2 years ago, they had an 11-win team. They had an 11, 12-win team. And now they don't have Kirk Cousins. They're going to lose Danielle Hunter. Team misses the playoffs last year. Okay, you had the injuries to Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. You got Addison. Yeah, sure, you brought in Aaron Jones. I like that move. It hasn't been all miserable for the Minnesota Vikings. But you have weapons on offense. You have Hawkinson. You got Jefferson. You got Addison. But who's throwing the football? And until I know who's throwing the football, and you don't have the Jefferson deal done, and now we're going a year plus of this nonsense, I can't say that you've been a winner of this offseason, even though I do love the move, bringing in Aaron Jones. So those are my three winners and my three losers right now, with the new league year starting to get underway tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. Legal tampering period already underway. Ravens, Eagles, Falcons winners. Cowboys, Saints, Vikings are the losers. 855-212-4CBS. 855-212-4227. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. You could always interact with us on Twitter and on Instagram at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We'll take a timeout. When we come on back, we're going to be joined by a man that won a national championship at Michigan this past year. He's preparing for the NFL draft. He participated in the Combine a few weeks ago. That is Michigan wide receiver Cornelius Johnson. What does he think J.J. McCarthy will be in the NFL as the J.J. McCarthy stock keeps on rising? Coming on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, hour number 3 of already a program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Really, NFL free agency has kind of been broken down into three different sectors so far. It's the quarterbacks. You know, Baker Mayfield stays in Tampa Bay. You know, Kirk Cousins lands with the Atlanta Falcons. Russell Wilson winds up with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then after that, you do have, from a running back standpoint, like 7 or 8 running backs that are pretty big names in this league already find a way to land with new teams. The headliners, Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles, Derrick Henry winding up with the Baltimore Ravens, Josh Jacobs going to Green Bay, and then Aaron Jones landing with the Minnesota Vikings. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I think the 2 biggest defensive moves was yesterday seeing the Las Vegas Raiders go out and get the big fella Christian Wilkins from the Miami Dolphins, an enormous deal, and you're going to free up space on the field and free up some double teams that Max Crosby usually does take on with having the big fella and who's very athletic and Christian Wilkins on the football field. And then not only that, how about Brian Burns? This is a great deal by Joe Schoen, who, remember, made a name for himself in that Panthers organization originally before going to the Buffalo Bills and being the assistant under Brandon Beane. But Joe Schoen knows the new general manager of the Carolina Panthers in Dan Morgan, and the Panthers are in a rough spot. You know, the last 5 years, that franchise has been just a miserable football team, and it's not like they haven't had talent. You know, they traded away Christian McCaffrey, didn't get a first-round pick. They traded away DJ Moore as he was used as a trade piece, and you also had to give up a bunch of first-round picks to get to Chicago so you could move up to 1, and Bryce Young was a disaster in year number 1. But you have one of the better pass rushers in the league in Brian Burns, and it was at the 2022 trade deadline where you were offered reportedly 2 first-round picks from the LA Rams for Brian Burns, and you turned it down. So now, a year or 2 later, Brian Burns doesn't get the contract done. You don't get the deal done, and you have to give up, or you only get back a 2nd and a 5 for Brian Burns. That's really disappointing. It is extremely disappointing where, okay, you could have had 2 years ago, 2 deadlines ago, 2 first-round picks, and now all you get back is a 2nd and a 5. So give credit to the Giants because you had the emotion of losing Saquon, and I don't think they should have paid Saquon the money that he wanted. But that was a decision the Giants made. So Saquon goes down the turnpike to a divisional rival in the Philadelphia Eagles, and Giants fans were heated yesterday. But now the GM saves face by going out and getting Brian Burns, and now you have a defense with Kayvon Thibodeau. You have a defense with Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns as well. The Giants, at least from a defensive standpoint, are starting to get back to moving in the right direction. And you got Bobby Okereke to also round out that front 7. But now it's going to be, what is the offense? Well, okay, you bring in Devin Motor Singletary, who's fine, who's solid. You don't really, though, have a quarterback. And I think the Giants are going to take a quarterback at 6. But Daniel Jones is still there. And then they did bring in Drew Lock as well today. So good move by Joe Schoen, getting Brian Burns in there and then giving him the big contract. All righty, let's welcome in a national champion, wide receiver at Michigan, getting set for the NFL draft that's going to come your way at the end of April. Be very curious to see where this man is going to land. And that, of course, is Cornelius Johnson, who's kind enough to join us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Cornelius, first off, thanks so much for doing this. How you been?
Thank you for having me, Zach. Nice to meet you. Nice to be here for today.
Yeah.
And good.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. So how do you kind of look back at last season, first and foremost, the final year at Michigan? We know you guys ended up winning the national championship. When you look back a few months away from that national championship game, just what are the memories that come to mind?
Yeah, man, it was a quick turnaround, but I was glad to be able to go out like that with my teammates. You know, there's no better way for the last college game to be that national championship win. And, you know, all we put into the years before that and then leading up to that off season and putting it all together for the win was huge for me and my teammates.
And what really stood out to me with this team was how selfless you guys were as a group. Like, I know as a wide receiver, there was probably times you were like, all right, I hope coach would just let JJ throw the ball a little bit more. But we know how dominant Blake Corum is, and you saw what Donovan Edwards could do in the biggest game of the season. We all remember the Penn State game right in the second half where it was just run, run, run. What I love so much about this team is you guys were willing to do whatever it did take to win, and you guys kind of checked the ego at the door.
Yeah, that's a good point, and especially as a wide receiver, going into some of those games where it was majority run game, it's like sort of balances your mindset because as a receiver, you want those targets, you want to run routes and show what you can do, but you can also deduce you can do in the blocking game and the running game to also attack the defense as well. So just doing whatever we could, and being ready once that ball did come our way. The run could open up the play action and open up the passing and drop back game, so that helped us too.
You guys were knocking on the door the last few years, right? You beat Ohio State back-to-back years. You win back-to-back Big Ten championships. And then going into this season, you knew it was national championship or bust. Did you kind of get a sense with a little bit of an older team that this was, with all the Harbaugh rumors of him leaving as well, which now we know he's the coach of the Chargers, that this season kind of felt a little bit like a Last Dance kind of vibe that we all saw during the pandemic?
Yeah, I guess you never really know till you know what I mean, with Coach Harbaugh. So we never really knew until it was finalized that he was leaving. But in terms of everything else, we definitely had that mindset of, man, it's championship or bust. We got to beat that team down south and then, win in Indianapolis and then go on to get our final goals of finally winning that college football playoff game, which we were able to do in Pasadena. And then that led us to the national championship game. So we were able to check off all those boxes, and that's something we set out at the very beginning of the year, like a year ago today almost.
Yeah, no disrespect to Washington. We know Kalen DeBoer, who was the coach there, is phenomenal. Michael Penix Jr., Roma Dunze as well. But, man, that Rose Bowl game and just the back and forth of the game and some of the mistakes that you guys made, and then you get the touchdown in overtime, the defense makes a big play with that setting and the history of college football, that had to be maybe the coolest game you ever played in, right?
Yeah, that overall was it just felt, looking back on it, I don't know if it felt long or if it flew by, but something about it was just hitting different. And then obviously it all starts with the Ohio State game. Wouldn't have got there without that. Those are probably our two closest games was Bama and O State. So they gave us a good fight. And then, we were to come out in overtime, which is one of the craziest finishes. And that game is going to be rewatched so many times in history.
Talking to Cornelius Johnson right now. We touched on it a little bit, how run first you guys were as a team. But going back to 2021, you had a season that started to catch some people by surprise with your production on the field. So I know a lot of people now, they're going to look at the stats and they're going to say, why should I draft Cornelius Johnson? What is the answer? What do you think your potential can be and what you could bring to an NFL team coming up in a few weeks when the draft gets underway?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, when people look at me as a prospect, there's all these teams, you got to look at all the film. I'm sure they're doing their research, trying to figure out, scrambling who to pick, who to look at, who to sign. When they come across me, they're going to get a winner, someone who's ready the first day, knowing all the plays, be able to play. They think I'm just an outside receiver, could play slot too. I could run, got 4.44 speed, could blow by defense and run those short, choppy routes too. So you're going to get a complete receiver who's willing to also play special teams, do what he can do on off the field too in the community. Just do whatever it takes to win, help a franchise right away. And that's what I'm looking forward to bringing to an organization and why somebody should draft me. Ultimately, get a winner and a reliable player, fast player.
Just wondered, how much of an inspiration was seeing the player that Nico Collins has developed into? And we know he was a Michigan man. How much of an inspiration with what Nico did this past year does that kind of just get you going a little bit?
Yeah, it's definitely very inspirational to see him coming from our receiver room in Ann Arbor to go out onto the NFL stage and continue doing what he does best. It's definitely very inspirational to all the rest of the receivers, Michigan receivers, and just friends of his too, to be able to do great things. And it's sort of like what you touched on earlier. Looking at the stats, you can look at all the numbers back when he was playing here. If you look at the numbers, that can sometimes alter your perception of it, but you really just got to look back at the game film and see how the games actually played out and how dominant he was when the ball did come his way and what he was able to do. But I guess, you can't always look at stats. Whoever has the best stats is going to get drafted the highest. It doesn't always work out like that. So there's both ways to it. And then, ultimately just trying to figure out where you fit in and do what you can do for the team.
So let me get to your quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, as Cornelius Johnson is here with us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I think he's the most polarizing prospect in the draft. 50% of the people will say, all righty, I believe in J.J. I think J.J. could be a great quarterback. The other 50% will just say that they didn't see it from a stat perspective in college and how much you guys did run the ball as well. What is a team getting in J.J. McCarthy, and how do you think his game will translate to the NFL?
In terms of being polarizing, the fans can say whatever they want, but I think, he's proved what he can do on the field. He's going to continue to do that throughout the workouts and throughout camp, and whoever gets him is going to have a great quarterback.
How about Roman Wilson?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off there. My bad.
I was saying, in terms of Roman too, all the stats and stuff, like we were talking about earlier. If we want to sit here and talk about stats, like we can do that. But I think, watching the film and seeing what our guys can do, you could be surprised by it if you really study the game and watch, our receivers getting open, our quarterbacks completing passes. Like, it's something we do here very consistently in Ann Arbor, and we're looking forward to, keeping that going, through the pro days and through the workouts and leading up to camp and wherever we go in our futures. But definitely with Roman too, another great receiver who's going to surprise a lot of people.
Do you kind of laugh at all the conversation? Because you guys did what you did in college. It was an unbelievable run. It was a great run. And now everyone, breaks you down and they throw you underneath the magnifying glass, the microscope, and they dissect every part of your game leading up to this draft. Like the conversation about JJ and what it's turned into, do you kind of just laugh at the entire thing?
At some point, it does get funny. You just got to laugh and smile through it all, because there's going to be so many highs and lows throughout the game of football, throughout life in general. And you're just trying to, ride around and keep your head focused on, what you want, what you think is most important. So, millions of people could have all these opinions about you or your friends, but ultimately what matters is what you go out there and do and how you're enjoying yourself. So, yeah, you're going to get dissected. You're going to get, looked at, scrutinized. That's what it was like at the Combine. That's what it's going to continue to be, even what it was like at Michigan, playing under hundreds of thousands of people, millions of viewers. There's going to be people watching your every move, but you just got to roll with it and embrace it. That's the fun part.
Wrap it up with Cornelius Johnson. When Jim Harbaugh left Michigan and made his announcement that he was going to be taking over the Los Angeles Chargers, how'd you process that one?
That was crazy, because it was funny how he went from the maize and blue to another maize and blue team. So he's going out west, and right where we were at in Pasadena, right in that same area. So he's going to be used to it. But I'm happy for him. I'm happy for his staff to be able to get that situation for them. And I'm excited to see how it plays out. Chargers have always been one of my favorite teams. I liked them a lot when they were in San Diego with Daniel Tomlinson, Phillip Rivers, Antonio Gates, Sproles, Jackson, all those guys were some of my favorites growing up. So to see him coaching there, it's like almost surreal in a way. But I'm excited for him for sure.
On the way out with Cornelius Johnson, what does Sharon Moore bring? Obviously people know who he is. They saw all the emotion he had after the Penn State game and the admirable job that he did. But Sharon Moore as the next Michigan head coach, what kind of emotion does that elicit from you?
I'm happy for him as well. Same thing as Coach Harbaugh. Coach Harbaugh put on Coach Moore. Put him on, showed him the ways of being a head coach. That's going to be a big jump for him to be the head coach of Michigan football. Like, that's a big deal, and he's ready for it. I know he's going to lead those boys and do what he's got to do. There's goals that they set and goals they're going to accomplish, and I'm excited to be able to watch those boys.
Last thing I'll ask you, Cornelius Johnson, is there a receiver or two that used to be in the NFL or is in the NFL right now that you kind of say, okay, I could see myself being that type of wide receiver in the NFL?
Yeah, one of my favorites is like Antonio Brown. I know he's had that controversy off the field. I avoid that as much as I can, but love his game in between the lines. Smaller receiver though, but he's able to run every route. Surprised a lot of people. People were thinking he was slow, but he don't play slow at all. Like Antonio Brown's game, and then sometimes I like that mindset of like Des Bryant, just doing whatever it takes to catch the ball and then throw up the X.
There you go. He's Cornelius Johnson. Cornelius, thanks so much for doing this. Good luck the rest of the way. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Zach Gelb. Appreciate it.
You got it. There he is, Cornelius Johnson, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And I think a lot of those Michigan players, because of how much they ran the ball, a lot of it with the NFL and the offensive side of the ball is like potential. Like, you know what Blake Corum is. Blake Corum going to get drafted probably third, fourth round, something like that. But guys like Roman Wilson, you hear a lot about his stock rising at the combine. Then McCarthy gets to the combine, his stock's rising. You read some articles about Cornelius as well, going back to that 2021 season. That's an impressive part to me, but it also makes it so tough to evaluate the prospect, where basically for this past year, it was run, and the draft is based off potential, but you're trying to sell me on what McCarthy can be, or what Roman Wilson can be, or what Cornelius Johnson can be as well. And it's weird to say that J.J. McCarthy's polarizing, but I think he is in an unintentional way, because 50% of the people will say, I see what everyone's seeing. And then the other 50% will be like, what the heck did you just watch in college football? All right, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. Come on back, a little overreaction, proper reaction.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Another NFL week is complete, which means it's another week to freak out about your favorite team. Which takes are truly crazy.
But sometimes a game can be so bad, it's almost good. You know what I'm saying? No.
And which are so crazy, they might be right.
He's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
Zach lets you know in this week's edition of Overreaction or Proper Reaction.
Alrighty, 2 days through the legal tampering period with the free agency set to kick off officially tomorrow with the new league year at 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll do a little overreaction, proper reaction, a lot of it coming off the news of the last 2 days. Santer, I always hate that term, the legal tampering window. It's an oxymoron.
Yeah, like if you're going to make it legal tampering, just get rid of the whole tampering window to begin with and just start free agency now.
So I agree with what you're saying, where it almost feels NBA-like at the draft, where you make a trade and a guy's wearing a Pistons hat because he's been drafted by the Pistons, but you know he's going to like the Clippers or something like that. But then I think from the NFL side of it, if they just say, okay, free agency begins on Monday, then Sunday and Saturday becomes maybe where some of the tampering does occur. So I think they just basically tried to open a window where they said, we know all this stuff goes on a day or two before free agency, so just let it occur. But none of it can become official until Wednesday. But I'm with you. Just start the free agency and then let it happen. If teams tamper and they want to run the risk of getting potentially punished, then okay, so be it.
Yeah, and let's be honest also. It seems like there were enough guys talking with teams that, as soon as the period of legal tampering started, there were deals within minutes. So,
that's true.
Clearly there's something going on, but happens in the NBA too, like you said. Now, after the Vikings lost...
But hold on, I'm just waiting for the announcement where we're like, Stuart Kovacs has agreed to terms to a 3-year, $33 million contract with the Las Vegas Raiders, and $13 million is guaranteed. I'm just waiting for that announcement.
When that happens, Stu's taking us out for dinner. That's for damn sure.
Just dinner? I'm saying Stu's paying for all of us to retire.
In Paris, on his private jet. There you go. Now, after the Vikings lost Kirk Cousins to the Falcons...
You like that?
The team filled the vacancy by signing former number 3 overall pick Sam Darnold. Though the Vikings might not be done as they have the 11th pick in the draft, and you predict potentially Michael Penix could be there for them. So overreaction, proper reaction. Sam Darnold will be the Week 1 starter in Minnesota.
So I'm having a fight here. I'm having a fight with my brain and then my gut. My brain says, yeah, probably Sam Darnold will be the day 1 starting quarterback, but it will be for a short-term basis. Then my gut is saying, you idiot, you moron, you dope, you don't want to see Sam Darnold. Because Sam Darnold, you could say the Jets messed him up. But you can't give me 5 tangible moments that Sam Darnold has put together on an NFL field that gives me any hope that he's going to be able to turn this around and have some career renaissance. Like, when I think of Sam Darnold, I think of 2 things now. Seeing ghosts and then mono. That's what I think of. So basically a year of not playing, now put him in a situation because you have that GQ type of head coach in Kevin O'Connell that makes what he thinks is a savvy move, bringing in Sam Darnold. And now you're going to lose Kirk Cousins and you're going to plan to start Sam Darnold week 1. Like, if they get McCarthy, okay, I could see them slowly implementing J.J. McCarthy. I could see that. But if they draft Michael Penix Jr., just throw him to the Wolves. That guy's ready to go. He's ready to go from day one. He's a ready NFL pro quarterback. So I will say this is an overreaction. Sam Darnold will be the week 1 starting quarterback in Minnesota because I usually like to trust my gut more than my brain. I think my gut is more valuable than my brain.
I think he's won a lot more battles for you as well. Let's be honest.
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
me too. So I'm not judging.
No, that's fine.
Now, as a quarterback market,
I got thick skin.
That's a good thing
especially
to have in this
my
industry.
gut.
Yes. I do too, but that's after years of being made fun of and people yelling at me.
Yeah,
but
by the way, have I been negative today about the Green Bay Packers? I don't think so whatsoever. I've been overly positive. I like the Josh Jacobs move. So they also got Xavier McKinney, which we talked about yesterday. But someone tweeted me, this guy Joey Colarula or something. I don't even know what his name is. Do you hate the Packers and Xavier McKinney or something? What do you have any tangible evidence why I hate the Green Bay Packers?
The only thing I could think of is when you had your winners of free agency so far, they were not among your 3 teams.
Oh.
The Packers I would put as 1 or 2 on my list as far as the winners this offseason. So maybe that's why, because you have the Falcons, the Eagles, and the Ravens. You did not have the Packers.
So since I did not praise them for all 3 hours and I left them out on one thing where I liked the other 3 teams a little bit better with what they did, that now makes me a Green Bay Packers hater. Remember, I am someone who constantly says on national radio, "Da-da-da-da-da-da, go, Pack, go." So, Joey, let's use a Q-tip, my brother. All right, what we got?
I mean, you also sing the Brown song and a few other different things, Raiders every now and again. So, you got a few different songs that come out your mouth.
That doesn't impact the Green Bay Packers at all. Like, if I had to go Green Bay, Raiders, Browns, teams I will pull for, Green Bay 1. Hey, Stu. Stu's Raiders 2. And the Cleveland Browns in at number 3.
No way. You're all about the Browns all year long. You're going Browns 1, Browns 2, Browns 3.
Well, I like the Browns for 3 reasons.
Joe
Ken
Flacco.
Carmen, because he's a jolly fella and I want him to be happy. Then the "Here we go, Brownies, here we go."
love that.
And I said, "Here we go again. It's the Cleveland Browns and it's 1st and 10. Like, if you just give me a good song, Raiders, the Packers chant, I'm very easy. It's just catchy.
I don't hear the Miami Dolphins song very often.
Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team.
Miami Dolphins.
They
Miami
move the ball
Dolphins,
from goal to goal,
Miami
marching,
Dolphins
1, 2, 3.
#1.
Yeah, I don't know if I actually got those lyrics right.
Yeah, you got something.
I may have pulled the William Hung there. She bang, she bang.
You know what? When I look at you, I think William Hung. It's just like, twins.
I had him do a cameo once for my fantasy football group when I won the championship. I think he charges $25 in cameo now.
Yeah, well, listen, good dancer, singer, I think. Now, as the quarterback market dries up, a few names that are still available are Justin Fields, Ryan Tannehill, and Jimmy G, who technically isn't a free agent.
Steroid head.
Until the Raiders are expected to cut him tomorrow. So overreaction, proper reaction. None of these 3 quarterbacks will be starting in 2024.
They're starting one game? Or you mean the starting going
The
into
starting
week 1?
quarterback. Because, yes, one of them could be on a team somewhere that somebody gets hurt. No, the starting quarterback named by the coach.
I'm going to say that's an overreaction. Ryan Tannehill will not be. Jimmy G will not be. But I'm still holding out hope. I think I'm going to be the last one waving this flag on Justin Fields. Fields to the Raiders. That's what I'm thinking this year. And if Justin Fields lands with the Raiders, I'm taking Stu to a Raiders game this year. We're going to go to Las Vegas. You can come too if you want, Santa. And we'll go to a Raiders game. Go back to Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas.
Do the Raiders travel to Jersey to take on the Giants or Jets?
No. We'll go to Las Vegas. I want to go back to that Italian restaurant with Sully Piero's.
Yeah, I mean, it is an awesome stadium.
It has nothing to do with the actual
there.
Raiders, yeah.
Yeah, the stadium was very cool. We got to walk on the field during the opening night. That was very cool. Now, we also saw Jacoby Brissett return to the Pats. Marcus Mariota go to the Commanders. Jameis to the Browns to back up Deshaun. Tyrod Taylor is now joining the Jets to back up Aaron Rodgers, although I'll tell you a funny story later that maybe Aaron Rodgers won't be the starting quarterback for the Jets, but that's a whole other thing.
Are they going to puncture Aaron Rodgers' lung like they once did to Tyrod Taylor?
It's even crazier than that. But
I think I saw it.
Yes.
VP Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers
Is this a
could
real
be
story?
a VP candidate for one of the presidential candidates who's running for the office.
So I thought...
Could you imagine?
So this is my problem now with X. I see all these fake stories now that I just thought that was a fake story. Like I saw
this came from Florio, so I don't know if it's real or not, but it's real enough.
Mike's credible. He also hates Aaron Rodgers. But then he started to grow to like Aaron Rodgers last year during the offseason. He made that admission on this show. But I saw that and I was like, that could be true. But then also there's no way that that's true. And that's actually true?
I mean, it's true based off of, this is from Florio. Presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has Jets Aaron Rodgers as at the top of his list for running mates, along with Jesse Ventura. Seriously. Now, Jesse Ventura was political. He was, I believe, the governor of Minnesota.
Political rant here. Uh-oh.
I'm not a Jets fan anymore. I don't care. If it was Patrick Mahomes, I would care.
Abort the segment here.
If the Jets lose Aaron Rodgers again,
we don't need
whatever.
to hear Santa talk politics here.
Yeah, but I'm not even.
You'll see a volcano.
I'm just saying that Tyrod Taylor could be the Jets starting quarterback in 2024 at this point.
Yeah. Wait, would Woody Johnson then be the ambassador of somewhere? Or wasn't he the ambassador under Trump for a little bit? He left
in England, I believe. I think he was the British ambassador to Donald Trump. The Drew Lock also left Seattle to back up Daniel Jones in New York. So overreaction, proper reaction of these moves. Brissett, Mariota, Jameis, Tyrod Taylor, Drew Lock.
Right for it.
James Winston to the Browns is the best of these moves.
Oh, jeez. So you're saying between all those moves that you just mentioned?
Yeah, because it all looks like they're going to be backups, except, Tyrod Taylor, who's going to take on the starting quarterback role when Aaron Rodgers becomes the vice president of the country.
Mariota to the Commanders is not better than Jameis to the Browns. Tyrod Taylor to the Jets, no. Drew Lock to the Giants, no. You know what? Brissett is. I think Jacoby Brissett, right now entering 2024, I think he's going to start week one. Because I think the Patriots draft a quarterback and they don't play him right away. And I think Brissett has been better than Jameis Winston recently. So I will say, out of these moves, Jameis to the Browns is the best. That is an overreaction. But kind of rooting now for Deshaun Watson to fail because I get very entertained by Jameis Winston playing with the touchdowns and interceptions that do occur.
I do love Jameis.
Eat a dub.
One of the biggest names remaining in free agency is wideout Calvin Ridley, who is likely to leave Jacksonville, especially after they sign Gabe Davis. Now, one report says your Pats are a serious contender and have an offer already out to land Ridley. Overreaction, proper reaction. Calvin Ridley is a legit number one wide receiver in the NFL.
So I'm a little concerned about this report because I saw the report that the Patriots have been desperately pursuing him. We are now the desperate team. That is a humbling moment. We now try to win the offseason. And I'm even reading that he's trying to still go back to Jacksonville, who just brought in Gabe Davis, and they also have Christian Kirk getting paid. So I kind of feel like I'm getting used here by Calvin Ridley. But with all that being said, I do think Calvin Ridley is a legit number one wide receiver. I know that there was some mental health, and then there was also the gambling thing as well. But coming on back after missing all that time last year and being a 1,000-yard receiver, I think he's going to get back to what he was a few years ago in Atlanta. So Calvin Ridley is a legit number one receiver. I will say that is a proper reaction.
All right, last one. Offensive tackle Tyron Smith is still unsigned and could demand a massive contract, ranking fourth among tackles by PFF. However, the 33-year-old likely future Hall of Famer hasn't played a full season since 2015, and he's missed 37 games over the past 4 years due to injury, prompting many to say he will only sign a 1 or 2 year prove-it deal. Overreaction, proper reaction. Despite the injury concerns, you would give Smith a long-term deal at offensive tackle.
I'm going to say that is an overreaction. I give him a 1-year deal. I know you could probably give him a 2-year deal and you front loader. If you give him a 3-year deal, you front load the contract. But I would just say at his age and the injuries that he suffered as well, and you get into that mid-30 range as a tackle or early 30s, you're on the downside of your career. You can still be productive. Like, heck, you see like Jason Peters gets signed here and there still, which is crazy. And he's like 41 or whatever. But I would not go and feel comfortable about giving him more than 1 year unless the guaranteed money is heavily structured in my favor. So I would say, despite the injury concerns, you would give Smith a long-term deal. I would go overreaction on that one. I would prefer a 1-year deal and, give him whatever it takes guaranteed. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. We'll come on back. We'll wrap up shop on this Tuesday. Update time first. Here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio.
Sports Flash.
Well, after coming up short of landing Derrick Henry in a trade last season, the Ravens still had interest and reportedly signing the future Hall of Famer to a 2-year deal with $9 million in guaranteed money. The total value could reach as much as $20 million. Patrick Queen is reportedly leaving Baltimore to head to the rival Steelers on a 3-year deal worth $41 million. And Shaq Barrett leaves Tampa to go to the other side of Florida for a 1-year deal with Miami. Josie Jewell and the Panthers reportedly come to terms on a 3-year deal. And after paying Kirk Cousins all that money yesterday, the Falcons got him a receiver today with Darnell Mooney signing a 3-year deal worth a total of $39 million. The Texans fill the void of Devin Singletary's departure by acquiring Joe Mixon from the Bengals. Drew Lock has signed a 1-year deal with the Giants, who are also signing veteran defensive back Jalen Mills. 4 more conferences will be decided tonight. The championship games will be held in the West Coast Conference, among them, featuring Gonzaga and St. Mary's. The CAA, Horizon, and NEC conferences will all be decided as well. I'm Rich Ack.
What's going on, everybody? This is JR. Join me here on CBS Sports Radio for the JR Sport Brief. Weeknights, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
So Samter was telling us about this story that at first we thought was satire, but it ended up being true. How RFK Jr. wants Aaron Rodgers to be his vice president. Let me just preface with what I'm about to say is I am not a political person. So whatever I say right now, don't take me seriously for the next 5 minutes. I kind of hope that RFK Jr. wins and Rodgers is his vice president. Could you imagine, Samter, you being a former Jet fan now since you abandoned the Jets for the Kansas City Chiefs? You went from the Jets, Jets, to the Kansas City. How about those Chiefs? The Jet fan thinks they have their savior in Aaron Rodgers. So it's one thing, all right, you run onto the field with the American flag. Unfortunately, 4 plays into the season, your Achilles goes, and then you're done for the year. But now you're getting Rodgers back, and you get told by Aaron Rodgers just the other day on some podcast, maybe I'm going to play 2 years, maybe I'm going to play 3 years, or maybe I'm going to go 4 more years, 4 more years, 4 more years. And now, could you imagine he doesn't even play a full game? Because RFK Jr. wins and plucks Rodgers as his VP? That would be the most Jet thing in the world to ever happen. Hey, why'd you lose your Hall of Fame quarterback? Oh, he became the vice president of the United States. That would be gold.
But the Packers have to give back those picks.
It would be highway robbery. It would be crazy. Now,
this is why I stopped being a Jets fan, because it's not about necessarily the coaching and the on-field decisions or the draft and like how they play. It's not that. That's not why I left the Jets. I saw the Jets suck for a long time and I stuck with them. The Jets were awful. They had the first pick in the draft and then lost two fewer games the next year and finished 1-15. And then they traded that pick, which was supposed to be Orlando Pace, because they already drafted Keyshawn Johnson. They sucked my entire life, and I never left them. That's not why I'm leaving them. I'm leaving them because of crap like this, where the Jets are just the brunt of jokes for too long, and just when you get your hopes up about anything, forget about things happening on the field. Vinny Testaverde's Achilles falls off, or Bill Belichick spurns you to go to the Patriots.
Hey, Stu. He says he's no longer a Jet fan, right?
No, but this is what I was a Jet fan, and all of that
Sounds
anger
like
about being a Jet fan is coming back up, and that's why it's so great to be a Chiefs fan.
If it looks like a Jet fan, if it talks like a Jet fan, if it acts like a Jet fan, guess what? Still a Jet fan.
I definitely smell like a Jet fan.
You do.
By the way, remember that Curb Your Enthusiasm scene where the Jets killed Carl? Do you remember that?
I don't watch the show, but I've seen clips, especially after Rodgers got injured. Like, that was floating all around social media. Yes.
Okay, Stu, do you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I do not.
Okay. Now, you guys are not going to get...
I've seen the clip, so I get the reference.
No, but my next point now, you won't understand it, because RFK Jr. is married to someone that is on Curb Your Enthusiasm. And my friend told me this like a year ago. And sometimes you have a friend that tells you a good story, but you don't know if the story is actually true. And that's one of my friends here, where everything he says, I almost have to fact check it, because it's always very entertaining. But then you wonder how much of the truth he's stretching. Or this friend, as much as I love him, one of my best friends in the world, he is someone that he will fall for every internet or Reddit thread rumor. Like, I can't tell you how many times he's found Reddit threads about me or articles about me that I would never even come close to finding. He's like, did you see you mentioned on this Reddit thread? No, sorry, I don't monitor Reddit to see how many times Zach Gelb gets mentioned. But he told me this about a year ago, and I guess they've been married since 2014. Cheryl Hines, who used to play the wife of Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I know her.
Yeah. Okay, so you do know her.
And she's been in a lot more stuff than just Curb.
And then they break up in the show, and then she's still a part of the show.
Spoiler, come on. What if I decide to watch it?
This is the final season of Curb. If you haven't watched it at all yet, it's not a spoiler. You're just late to the party, which is kind of like the story of Samter's life. But Cheryl Hines is actually in real life married to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So when you mentioned Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I was like, let me fact check my friend here and see if Cheryl Hines is actually married and the wife of one Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But isn't that great? Aaron Rodgers, from quarterback to vice president. That would be wild. It has a 0% chance of happening. But Samter, it would be a very Jet-like thing.
Well, so the first report that I saw said that he had him high on his list. RFK Jr. did. Mm-hmm. However, now it sounds like he's actually approached Aaron Rodgers about it. It doesn't mean that Rodgers is interested, right? So I can't blame Aaron Rodgers.
How does that meeting go? Do you think they sit in a dark cave and do ayahuasca together?
They've done things together, right? Aaron Rodgers is a big supporter of RFK Jr.
Oh, wait, didn't they recently?
Yes, they went hiking together.
Yeah.
They did something together. They
wasn't
hang out
a
together.
Dog named Achilles or it was some joke there. They went hiking with their dogs.
Right. So they have a relationship. So I'm sure that it was at dinner, as or maybe it was a more formal conversation. But it sounds to me that they've been spending a lot of time together. Aaron Rodgers has been promoting RFK Jr. Politically for quite some time now. So it doesn't mean that Rodgers is interested. It doesn't mean that Rodgers is maybe I would think about this. Maybe it's just RFK being like, dude, I love Aaron Rodgers. He's got a big name, and he'll give me the best chance to get the most votes. So I can't put anything on Rodgers yet. If Rodgers comes out and says he's considering it, or that he...
Oh, he's going to play into it.
If he plays into it...
He's a drama whore. Of course he's going to play into it.
Right, so if he plays into it, that's when it becomes a problem for the Jets. It's not a problem if somebody else is interested in Aaron Rodgers. It's a problem when Aaron Rodgers becomes interested in that other person. That's when it becomes a problem for the Jets.
He's not going to win anyway, so it doesn't matter. He'll be quarterback come fall.
Well, so the election's in November, right? Mm-hmm. So could Aaron Rodgers sign on and be like, hey, I'm just going to I'm just going to miss a few practices here or there. I'll be there for Sundays, I'll be like, campaigning.
Now I'm going to go down a road that is going to get very dangerous here. And remember, I'm not a political person, so I laugh at both sides. Do the stay out of politics crowd, will they then be fine with Aaron Rodgers being the VP while still playing football?
You know what? Rodgers is he appeals to everybody and nobody at the same time. So I don't know who's going to like or dislike Rodgers. It feels like everybody's going to hate him and love him at the same time. So the election is November 5th, 2024, which, week 8, week 9, somewhere around there. So could Aaron Rodgers technically campaign while also practicing and playing games?
I have breaking news, by the way. If this ticket does win, I am being told Pat McAfee is going to be the White House press secretary. That's what I'm being told. So sources have told your boy Zach Gelb.
Do they have a dump button on the White House microphone?
I think that you just start letting all curse words fly. McAfee takes over. That's what we basically have done in the radio business.
Excuse me, Mr. McAfee, can you explain to us why Mr. Rodgers and Mr. Kennedy made this decision? Bleep this and bleep that and bleep you guys. All right, cool, thanks.
Screw you guys, I'm heading home. By the way, if we could take 2 current sports people and make them president, vice president, who will we take? I have the president. The president would be Jason Kelsey. The vice president, I'm kind of just looking at Stu's reaction on this one. How about Matt Rempe of the New York Rangers? Bring a little toughness.
No idea who he is.
He's like a 7'1" hockey goon.
Kelsey to me comes off more as a VP guy. He's a leader, sure, but he's too goofy and crazy and wild and chugging beers to be the guy. He's a great VP. He can inspire and motivate. But, I don't know if I want to look to him as being, my guy. He's the guy.
Okay, so then who would your president be?
Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is the president.
Oh, no.
He appeals to everybody. He's beloved. Right?
Wouldn't be a popular first lady.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I've grown to like Brittany Mahomes more, but I think a lot of people do not.
Well, you know what?
Like Brittany Mahomes.
We will say one thing about Brittany Mahomes. She's not going to be in the back burner. She's going to be out there doing stuff. She's going to be
champagne in Congress.
She'll take the role seriously. She'll be out there doing her podcast, but she'll also be out there,
She does a podcast?
Yeah, or no, maybe I'm thinking of Kelly Stafford.
Yeah, Kelly Stafford. I thought
but Brittany Mahomes does a bunch of stuff. She'll be out there. She'll be helping the community. She'll be out there, doing a lot of different things. That a first lady
can't
would
see
do.
Mahomes being president. Anyway, final poll calculations today. Out of these 4 moves, what's the best offseason signing so far on the offensive side of the ball? Kirk to Atlanta, Russ to the Steelers, Saquon to Philadelphia, or King Henry to the Baltimore Ravens? King Henry is at 36.7%. 26% say Saquon to Philly, 25.5% say Kirk to Atlanta, and then 11.7% say Russ to the Steelers. I go Saquon to Philly 1. I go Kirk Cousins to Atlanta, Magic City 2. 3, King Henry to the Baltimore Ravens, and then I put in at number 4, Russell Wilson to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Alrighty, that is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I'm very afraid to log on to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter after this show. Just remember, I'm not really a political person. The last 10 minutes did not reflect the true views of Zach Gelb or the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. It was all just having fun.
We presented no views. We just kind of joked about Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, you never know, though. Then people start to assume things, and you know what happens when you assume. All righty, good job out of each and every one of you. Samter, Stu, as well. We'll talk to you manana at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.